Welcome to Wisdom Talk Radio, a collaborative community of explorers in conscious living.
You may not think often about the impact your own intergenerational history has on you. Contained in our cells are the patterns of those who have gone before us. And that impacts us both individually and collectively. Really, in a way, in every different day, every day, there is an impact that we're generally not aware of. So it can be a profound healing and creative opportunity to explore the ways that you can cross the bridges into a more, into a new and refreshed personal operating system, really. So my guest today will expand you. He will challenge you and maybe even blow your mind just a little. So stay tuned and welcome to Wisdom Talk Radio. I'm Laurie Seymour. I am host of Wisdom Talk Radio, and I am CEO and founder of the Baca Institute, home of the Quantum Connection Process. Head over to the Baca Institute to discover your quantum connection with your inner guidance, which is something you can do by taking the Quantum Connection quiz. You'll find your own individual style, the way that you're most comfortable and most drawn to connecting with the infinite potential. You may not even think about it, but it's how you directly connect with Source at a level that you may never have thought you could do. And if you're doing it, you may never have realized what is your particular strength and what are the things that you could even learn more about to allow this connection to flow with greater ease. Because really, that's the secret to you creating what you want in your life. So my guest today is a dear friend, Gary Stuart, who is a master Constellation facilitator and speaker who has been facilitating transformative healing experiences for over 2 decades. And I wonder, Gary, if that it's more than that, but we won't go into that. His skills and techniques help expand consciousness while resolving lifelong challenges, stagnation, and negative family patterns. He is a 5-time best-selling author, and his latest release, which I know we're going to talk some about today, is Venus Envy, Busting the Male Misogyny Myth. Welcome, Gary Stuart, my dear boy, my dear friend. I'm glad you're here.
Old man.
I wasn't going to do that.
That's okay. Yeah. Excellent. It's thrilled to be here, and I love the quantum aspect of what you do. You could say our family systems are really quantum aspects.
Yeah, I never thought about that, but you have written about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I did a Constellation book along with Amika Swami. He was in What the Bleep. He was a quantum physicist, and he did kind of the science side, and I did the more kind of quantum, the multidimensional side. He's familiar with that from, say, a mathematical level. And did a short session in his home when we had a writing meeting in Eugene, Oregon, and this entire family's life history in 10 minutes. He said, how did you tap into every minute detail, to the point of the mother having a miscarriage between number 3 and 4? I mean, it was all, I said, it was, you gave me permission, and it was on a silver platter. To rethink the universe.
So what does that mean, Gary? He gave you permission, but how did you tap into that?
Well, he wanted me, so in Constellation, we use reps. So that's a person at the workshop who might rep you. So they have filters for their own family system, almost like a chain link fence of beliefs and experiences. But a total stranger, they have it for their family system, but not yours. So they can be an open vessel to the raw data and the raw energy that you're carrying as part of your life force you inherited. but at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, they can be uncensored about it because they don't have those beliefs. Say you had a strict Christian family, or say your ancestors survived the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
They have, beliefs about victimization. If you're Native American, just all the traumas, Irish, the famine, you name it, we've encountered it. But there's what I call echoes of those traumas in us that we don't even realize we're carrying. And the beauty, what I try to tell people, here's a monkey wrench for people's belief system. What if I tell you everything your family system ever did with you, to you, was perfect?
That's a great mind-blowing statement right there,
Yes,
Gary.
yes. Would you be here if they didn't have the survival skills to survive Hitler, to survive the famine, the potato famine in Ireland, the Holocaust, the pogroms in Russia? If you're Jewish, a lot of people think Hitler was the only anti-Semite, but Russia was killing
Hmm.
Jews hundreds of years before
Mhm.
Hitler was even born. So a lot of people don't realize the length of trauma goes hundreds of years behind us. And we're in reaction to the positive messages and also, unfortunately, the negative messages as well. So trying to extract yourself, like I'm a baby boomer, so I was born right after World War II. My father had severe PTSD, which is physical violence,
Mm-hmm.
but he had that in his childhood before my grandfather, before my ancestors died. They said how brutal my grandfather was. So I can't imagine how brutal my great grandfather was to the
Mm.
father. And it's going to sound kind of crazy, but the men in my family only connect through brutalized violence.
Wow.
There's no space for love, tenderness, warmth. I don't even think I hugged my father once, maybe as a baby if he held me close, but no physical contact whatsoever. And
Wow.
that's kind of the lessons from my male lineage, which I try
Mm-hmm.
to be the antithesis of because I'm opposite from that, if you know me, which you do.
Which I do, and
And
I was
yeah,
about to say this is not you at all.
right.
And so
Exactly.
how does that work?
Well, we don't realize those of us who, let's say, can be conscious enough, and I'm not saying that in an arrogant way.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 23, I said something's really wrong here. I'm not happy. I'm young,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw primal therapy. Luckily, John Lennon was one of my few idols.
Hmm.
Um, in all the negativity that I was living in as a teenager, I saw the Beatles and music. Oh, there's something pleasurable. Oh my God, there's
Mm-hmm.
something that can make me feel happy that's not violent.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, my father hated it because that generation loved Frank Sinatra and this and that, and I like Sinatra too, but he just thought it was anti-music and anti-whatever. So that was my only pleasure, and I felt the hope that something positive could come from a male like John Lennon, you know,
Mm-hmm.
even Mick Jagger, the Rolling Stones, and that emerging British invasion really caught me with pleasure and happiness, which I did not have in my life at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention school bullying and all the negatives of the school experience, which is horrific. So it really gave me hope. And John Lennon was on the Mike Douglas show, is talking about he and Yoko were in primal therapy. I
Oh.
never heard of therapy. I'm 23. I don't feel good
Mhm.
inside. What is this? John Lennon's doing it. I better find out about it. And I got
Wow.
booked the Primal Scream, and every page I was crying, and I said, "This is my life. This is my life. This is my life. I got to do this." So at 23, I really started my healing journey about almost 50 years ago. Yeah, actually, it'd be 50 years this year. Yeah, that I started
Wow.
the healing journey and opening my consciousness to the trauma and the violence, and doing many modalities, psychedelics over the years. And then when I discovered constellations, I felt you don't need ayahuasca or psychedelics to go into that quantum field.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, you can we're in it already, but do we pay attention to it? Is the
Right. We're part of it no matter what.
Yeah,
We are
exactly.
it.
Yeah, we're just not focused on it, the
Mm-hmm.
benefits that it gives us. So, for your listeners who might not feel, oh, I'm not scientific, quantum this, quantum that, the old term for it, just to educate the audience, um, not to be, I'm not judging at all, but would be holistic. The older word would be
Mm-hmm.
holistic healing, like doctors have the allopathic healing versus the holistic. So holistic includes the whole, and quantum is actually just the bigger whole. It's the
Mm-hmm.
entire universe intersecting with us in our DNA, in our cells, in our experience. And we
And
can,
just as the family experiences
yeah,
interact with us, I mean, family generations going back forever
yeah, yeah,
without our consciousness or direct attention to
exactly.
it. And I
Yeah,
have been part of both in and watching some of
yes.
your facilitations, and
It's
seeing the kind of magic that happens in.
it's very powerful. And the thing is that we don't realize. So my first experience with a facilitator in LA in 1998, I believe it was when I discovered it. And
Mhm.
what kept showing up in mine is my father's younger brother in 1933 dying in a hospital of an appendicitis. Now, here it is 1998. I was born in 1951. How can an echo of something that happened 20 years before I was born be inside my body? But that destroyed the grief and the hatred that my grandparents had to each other, broke up their marriage and family.
Mhm.
And that is some of the violence started to emanate from that, and hatred
Wow.
and anger and all that stuff. And so I could see, wow, that one event was pivotal rather in my father's childhood because he was 12 or 13 at the
Wow.
time. So that destroyed his childhood on top of the violence from my
Mhm.
grandfather. Then World War II, like 7 years later, when you were 20, and that's awful young to go to war, to go all the way
Mhm.
to
Well,
Germany
yes, no matter
on
what.
on Omaha Beach, mind you,
Mhm.
with the Nazis firing at him, surviving all that all the way to Germany and then back again. So look at they exactly didn't have massage therapist or psychotherapist on the beachhead saying, "Oh, how do you feel about the Nazis shooting you, running into bullets?" You know
Right.
what I mean? And the amount of grief he had, he would always talk my whole life about the beach, the day on the beach, the day on the beach. I thought he was talking about swimming on the beach. It wasn't until I saw Saving Private Ryan, the opening scene was like Omaha Beach or any of the beaches. I
Mhm.
said, "Oh my God, that's the beach." And I was
Mm.
what, 45, right before I discovered Constellation. I said, "That's what he was talking about." I didn't even grasp it until
Wow.
then. And he had been
Wow.
dead since 1966. So he easily was dead 25 years by the time I discovered that's what the beach was.
So when you're creating a constellation session
Yes. Yeah.
and you have people representing different
Mhm.
characters from your
Yeah,
own
yeah. Your
history.
mother, your father, a sister,
Mhm. Mhm.
yourself, which is most important.
What is it, what is it that's shifting in the field that enables people to then feel released?
Well, I feel, and I'm not saying this to brag, but my ability to hold the negative without judgment, whatever
Mhm.
you're showing, I hold with unconditional love. So if the rep is showing the client's working on this and the client said, blah, 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 I'm angry, and then their rep is like crying and sadness and grief, the client sure has the story. I never negate the client's what they think their experience is.
Right.
If you watch
Mhm.
what the rep does, you'll say you're missing something that's much deeper, and that's showing up. And then the clients, I've had clients say, "I never knew." Like I never knew my father's younger brother had any impact on me. All I know is I received his name as my middle name, and there was a
Mhm.
tragedy in my father's childhood,
Right.
and
And you
who
didn't ever get to understand bodily in your cells what
exactly.
the impact of that was on him.
Right. And when the final constellation, it showed up about at least three times, once from my father's point of view, once from my grandfather's and my grandmother's. And it was just unresolved grief all the way. And anger
Mm.
and hatred replaced the ability to process grief.
Mhm.
Back
Mhm.
then, therapies weren't available way back then to even discuss with somebody. And the interesting thing for me, somatically, just so our listeners know, I felt like huge sandbags were falling off my back. The stage bags they hold the lights up with.
Mhm.
I felt literally heavy. I said, this is like pounds and pounds of, like burdens, really, that were
Right.
falling off my body. And I had that physical experience inside my own body with stuff falling off. It
Mm.
was
Mhm.
wonderful to finally finish a 70-year trauma I didn't even know I was part of.
Yeah, yeah, that you didn't even know you were part of. I mean, and
I
that's the
know.
piece is the kind of patterning that goes on, every moment
Yeah,
that we're just not aware of. And that it happens if we kind of bring out the lens. You've been talking about the personal,
yeah,
but when it's there in the consciousness of the field of humanity,
Yeah, yeah.
of a race, of a country, of a sex.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to pivot a little.
Yeah,
I
for
think we'll come
sure.
back to some of this too, but
Sure.
there is an original connection with source
Yes.
that we all have,
Mm-hmm.
whether we've forgotten it or not.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
how can intergenerational healing bring us back to that original connection?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had a really tough case of someone I knew. It's gonna make me cry. Uh, um, he was a client. My first spiritual group in LA when I relocated from Boston. He was there at 30 years old. Well, he finally came to me now at 65, and I never knew about his childhood. I did a workshop in LA, and he said, "I want to be a client finally. I've known you for years." Blah blah blah. He was shaken baby.
Mm,
4 concussions by the time he was 5 years old.
mm,
And the reason I'm saying this, and I said, don't forget, his mother's dead, his parents are dead. I said, there's a light above them. That source protected you from being killed by your creators. That is the source I want you to align with. So
mm,
the healing words I gave to him to say to the energy imprint of his mother is,
mhm,
I won. You didn't kill me. I won. I'm still alive and I'm 65.
mm,
I survived my babyhood, my young adulthood, and I won the right to stay alive, basically. But
mhm.
I had him look at the light above. That it happened to be an arch window, and I said, look at that light, because that is the source that was protecting you even with your creators, your parents, which is stronger than your parents. It's almost like the source is playing chess with these people,
Yeah.
and the source is almost playing chess with us. Say, well, I'm going to make you a pawn in their universe, so you're going to be here and experience all this negative stuff. Don't
Mm,
worry, I'm above it all, looking down, making
mhm,
sure you survive it all so you can evolve and change in the deepest, most profound way possible during your lifetime.
mhm, mhm. And so that they also get to experience what they need to experience. I mean, some
Yes.
way we're all playing that.
Well, it's like Shakespeare. We all have
Yeah,
a
yeah,
role
we're all
in
playing
like divine
in that
play.
sphere.
Yeah.
Mhm,
But the source is very important because a lot of people, it's family, family, family with the constellation community. I said,
mhm.
it's the bigger source that might have put the two people together
Yeah,
to create
yeah.
you. And
That family.
let's align with that, because
Mhm.
we get so lost in the traumas of the immediate family, we forget, well, wait, how did Oprah survive it? Do you think Oprah would have been treated the way she was if they knew that was a mini billionaire, billionaire, multi-billionaire? As again, she was like useless, worthless, but would Oprah have become Oprah without those negatives?
Exactly.
That's the quantum mind blower. So do the negative experience actually empower us to overcome it through positivity?
Mm.
And one meme I have out there, I've been posting in a while, there's no such thing as negativity. There's only a lack of positive perception.
Wow. There's only a lack of positive perception.
Because if you look at everything negative in your life, think about it for a second, my life as well. Would I have gotten here without that putting the fire in me to
Mhm.
say seek therapy at 23, knowing I
Right.
didn't feel right inside and I didn't even know why.
Absolutely. And would you have been able to create all that you've created?
Exactly.
You wouldn't have the know-how, you wouldn't have the means, you certainly wouldn't have, as you said, that fire inside
Yeah.
to want to create that. I mean,
Yeah.
I know why I went into the field of psychology.
Yeah.
I know why that was my first foray into
Mhm.
my educational, you know,
Right. Right. That
training.
side of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, was, oh, I know there's more, and I know that there's something that, I've forgotten that is major.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it didn't give me, psychology never gave it to me though.
Right.
So
Right.
I
And I
still
studied,
felt empty,
yeah,
and I
I
still
studied
had to keep
psychology.
looking
Yeah.
until other
Yeah.
experiences happened.
Yeah. And that's what we're all on an evolutionary path. And I joke with people, I could have either been a saint or a serial killer. And, and to say that with people who don't do the work, what if I was 23 and that anger that was implanted by generations,
Hmm.
like other people we see, school shootings, this and that, they
Hmm.
acting out what was implanted into them by their ancestors or society in the
Mm.
worst possible way. Luckily, I chose constructive internal ways of healing, but some people don't, and they externalize.
No.
And you see the craziness in the world right now. You're saying, wow, imagine what happened to those people in their childhood if the best they can do is shoot up a school of innocent children, you
And
know?
so there's something in you having chosen the things that you
Yeah.
chose and you having taken the steps that you've taken that I think also it goes the other direction. In other words, it impacts the generations that have come before us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Can you speak to that?
I have another insight that I got is no one asks for what life gives them. So everybody in our family is in reaction. Do you think my father asked for his brother to die? Did he ask to be a soldier in World War II? Did he ask to kill Nazis? Did he
Mm,
ask for PTSD? So if you really look at, I mean, you could say almost it's a lifetime of victimization. Did he ask to get malignant cancer at 40 years old and die at 46 with survivor guilt that his buddies?
mhm,
He
mhm,
had grief because his best friends around him were shot dead on the ground and he had to run. So
mhm,
imagine the level of grief he had, killing and
mhm.
watching his friends die. And why was he chosen to be a living one in a horrible situation? So no one really asked for it. What I see is most family systems are in reaction to those past impulses that they don't
Mhm.
even know are running them.
Yeah.
And when a lot of people see their parents, like, so, the parents, sometimes I've had parents at the workshop and the child's working, but you put in a rep in for your mother or father, you say, oh my God, you know, one Peruvian Catholic woman came to work on her son, who was a 20-year-old slacker, wouldn't get out of bed, didn't want to do anything, and
Mhm.
she said, "I want to do it." So I said, "Well, let's go in the background before he was created." So what had happened? The father was engaged to a woman who got breast cancer. He had knocked up the client with the boy we were working on,
Mhm.
and he broke up with the woman who had breast cancer and died. He married the woman, my client, who got knocked up, and now the son was 22 years old and listless. So she said to me in the constellation, why are you looking at my life? I said, see everything we're experiencing right now? That's what your son's carrying for you because you haven't dealt with it.
Mhm.
She said, oh, now I get it. Right. So, what's most touching about it, she was like blown away. And we got to a point of and just acceptance that that
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
all the drama he was born into. She called me the next morning. She said, you're not going to believe this. I didn't tell my son about the constellation. He said, Mom, will you give me a security deposit so I can move out and get a job now?
Oh,
He
wow.
never told him. He was sleeping
Oh,
probably while the
wow.
constellation happened, but
Mhm.
unconsciously he was stifling his entire life to hold those negative dynamics of the parents.
Until she was willing to
And when
take that.
she unloaded the baggage, so to speak,
Mhm.
he was
Mhm.
free finally because she took charge of the baggage
The
as he
sandbags
never
could come off.
wanted to. Yeah, yeah. And he was liberated without being told. I can't tell you how
Mhm.
many families totally changed from either one sibling, husband or wife working.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's transformative to people who aren't in the room.
Wow. So if we step back into
Yeah.
the collective experience,
Yes. Yeah.
because I have the feeling that there's a connection here. How did Venus Envy, this last book that you've written, how did that come about?
Well, I mean, I've written about 13 other books too,
Yeah,
but
no, I'm talking about just this last one.
yeah, yeah, but
Hmm.
the biggest insight, I would say, this is going to sound bizarre, but I think your listeners can know. So I've done about 17,000 constellations in 26 years.
Mhm.
85%, probably 90% of my clients are women who
Mhm.
seek healing more than men for whatever reason. We
Mhm.
won't go into that. And about 85% of those, say 16,000 women, were sexually abused. And talk about pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah, unbelievable. And I've had some men who were sodomized by their uncles and had to sit at the table next to the father and the uncle who sodomized him and never speak a word of it because the father would kill his own brother. So the
Mhm.
child was stuck with, and now he's a grandfather, but imagine that little boy at the holiday table. Oh,
Right.
I was anally raped at the camping trip. And now I have to pretend I love my uncle and my father, so my father can never know. That's from the male side. From the female side, same thing. Just horrific stuff with brothers, fathers, neighbors, you name it. I mean, the amount of sexual abuse against the feminine and the multi-generational aspect that the women didn't have a voice, weren't allowed a voice to even speak up about it. Even the mothers would say, "Oh no, you're making it up. Just be quiet. Never talk about that again. You're denigrating the male who did it. Don't you dare. Don't you bring that up, you twisted little, tyke," or whatever they would say. And so the women didn't even have a voice. And so after that many, I see how misogyny, a synthetic male domination to repress the feminine, allow those things to happen. There was an article I read recently. They asked a father and his brother why they violated his daughter. They said they were told psychologically she won't remember anything that's done to her body up to 8 years old. So it was fair game. Yeah, but they had a belief. The perpetrators have a belief that they can do no wrong. And in a male, and I'm not bashing males, the book was written for males and females, not just male bashing, is that the men have this false belief they can do no wrong in a man's world.
Right. So it's what they're trained to do.
In
It's still
society
the brainwashing.
right, right, and it really is mind control by religion. I won't go into that in case people who follow you are really religious, but let's just sort of, they demonized Eve in the first chapter of the Bible, Genesis. She corrupted them. Really? Okay, let's start there. So going backwards 27,000 years before the Bible, mind you, I did a lot of research. The entire planet was goddess worship for 27,000 years. Everything was matrilineal. All the possessions went to the firstborn daughter. And it was, I don't know if your listeners know this word, egalitarian. Egalitarian is everything is shared with all. It's not the billionaire winner take all mentality that we're all subjected to now through WEF and all this insane billionaire stuff that's going on in the world. It was like the women shared everything. And some of the women would even go out and hunt for food, and the men would take care of the babies at home. And so the roles were very different. And it was to nurture the tribe, the clan, the culture, so they could all survive in nature together.
So there was that love present.
Exactly. Nurturing is women more the nurturers than males. And it was equalized, and no gender was right, no gender was wrong. And then when it started to get into with religion, the division of the genders and the power over another, and much to my surprise, you'll never guess who declared women private property of men.
Tell us.
Moses.
What?
Yeah, it took off like wildfire. There's some women who were Jewish women who were researching the Talmud, and they said Moses edited the Ten Commandments to give males domination, which was not probably what God told him, allegedly, with the burning bush, and that he was the first person that said women are the private property, and he would kill anyone who disagreed with him. So he went into Canaan after the Exodus. Canaan is still in Israel today. And he killed any man who wouldn't submit, give up goddess worship to his worship of the angry male god was killed. Women were enslaved, sexual slaves enslaved. And this is allegedly from this alleged holy man that we've read about. I was in absolute shock, and I said, people are going to think I'm anti-Semitic, and I'm just pro-truth. It's like, let's have the real story out there. It was absolutely shocking to me, but it took off like wildfire in the Mideast after that, because, well, if God told him that's women are less than, then we better all believe it and act accordingly. And that's the real repression started of the female globally.
There's so much in that, and
I know.
we can't go into that now, but it makes me wonder, it makes me want to do my own research into some of that. But I've seen one of the most destructive things is the way in which religion says to us, you cannot have a direct relationship with source.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
can only go through this intermediary because
Right.
you're not worthy, you're not whatever.
Or you're
And
a
that's
sinner. You're a sinner.
or you're a sinner, and there's
Something
the
wrong
Eve
with you.
piece,
Mm-hmm.
the original sin, and that's
Right.
not the original sin. That was
Mhm.
knowledge. That was truth. That was, oh,
Nature,
what?
nature. We
Yeah,
didn't
why did
have
God put this here if
right,
not to
right.
eat it?
Right, exactly. And also, everyone procreates, and why is there a limitation on procreation that it was bad that
Mm,
you procreated, that you're a product is a bird bad because it didn't marry the other bird to lay an egg? Come on, it's beyond ridiculous. And also with sexuality, the University of Norway did a study of 1,500 homosexual animal species, and America would not allow it to tour in the United States. It's at the University of, just look it up on Wikipedia, Ålesund, Norway, the Museum of Natural History, research all over the world of same-sex coupling. And I've
and-
always felt same-sex coupling is nature's birth control, so we won't overpopulate to
mm.
and that it wouldn't exist if there wasn't a purpose. Nature doesn't make mistakes.
Mhm.
And the fact that alternative lifestyles or preferences were demonized, especially by religion. And the irony is, look what they were doing behind the scenes of the altar.
Exactly.
And yet they're
Exactly.
telling people that it's sinful, evil, this and that. And here's something that really blow people's minds. I was in Calgary at an EBC thing with Teresa, and I had a Mexican Catholic client, and she wanted to work on her great grandmother being raped in the rectory at 13 years old
Mm,
by the priest
mhm,
after Sunday school. We're talking probably 1920s, 1910. Now here's the rub. Would the client be there with me in the 21st century if that didn't happen?
mm.
So you got to look at that, you
Yeah.
know? And so how was life passed on without judgment? It passed on through that negative experience of her great grandmother. And I'm
Mhm,
not endorsing anything about that. It's just horrific abuse of power. I
mhm,
mean, you name it, there's like 45 violations there.
mhm.
But did life really care? It just moved forward. So, one of my big things I've learned from this, life doesn't really care. It just wants to move forward.
So,
And it
say,
put
so say
judgment.
something more than that. Life,
Oh,
life
yeah.
doesn't really care.
Yeah.
It just wants to move on
Yeah. Yeah. Forward, forward.
forward.
So I often call life the life force is like a green snake in green grass. You don't
Hmm.
see it and it blends in with the grass. And does it really look backwards? No, it just slithers forward. And when you look at the life force, we inherited that as organic human beings to move forward at all costs. My father would run through bullets to stay alive.
Hmm.
What do
Hmm.
people do to stay alive? And that they did that to move forward, to create life. You would think any Jewish person from the Holocaust would never want to have kids in case there was another maniacal dictator.
Mm.
I think that.
Hmm.
But the strength of the life force is let's proliferate.
Yes.
Yeah. And one
Let's
thing the
keep creating. Let's keep
one thing the
creating.
audience should know statistically. So guess how many baby boomers were born between 1945 and I think it's 1964, less than 20 years.
How many?
75 million.
Okay.
Okay. How many people died in World War II?
I don't know these things.
75 to 80 million people.
Wow.
So
Wow.
how now this goes really deep, and I look at things like I'm a philosopher at heart.
Me
So
too.
how does death support sexuality and
Hmm.
life? So if there's great death, that's going to bloom great life.
Right.
And these soldiers saw the worst of humanity, but yet they had the faith to go home and procreate like bunnies, to put it
Right.
this
Hmm.
way,
Hmm.
creating a whole generation. And 90% of the baby boomers were anti-war and peaceniks, which I was, for sure.
And
Believe in
same,
violence.
we grew up in a
Violence was the
similar,
way. But
yeah.
look at how, so, with Bert Hellinger, we look at the Constellation founder, we look at the bigger cycles. How does life support death?
Hmm.
And death supports sex, and sex supports life. You look at the cycle, it's a circular cycle. And of course, it's multiple generations going down from the trauma. So everyone would carry, say, if they were, their ancestors were in Auschwitz, they'd carry those survival mechanisms and those fears, in them, even though they might be in a safe place in the 21st century. The echo or the imprint, shadows is probably a better word, of the fears that they
Hmm.
encountered,
Hmm.
in a way are haunting them, the living ones who didn't have that experience.
And so many people that I've worked with have that will say to me, I know there's something
Yeah.
that's either happened that I don't even know about, but there is, and they will often use that word shadow, and
Yeah,
not in the way that Jung used the word shadow, but
right,
there's a
exactly.
shadow over something, and it comes up in the most inopportune times sometimes.
Hmm.
And what is that and what is that about? And there's so many different ways of going into it without having to do excavation of it,
Right,
with
exactly.
releasing that in the cell so that you can be free to create.
Exactly.
And because that, it's sort of like, the life force is that curve, and
Yeah.
are we behind it, or are we in front of it letting it
Hmm.
carry us forward?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And some people, I'm concerned, like some people, even in Constellation, I'll be absolutely honest, I feel they're trauma worshipers and they're
Hmm.
not looking forward. They're addicted to looking at the past. And
Yeah.
personally, I feel it's unhealthy. We had a closing panel. I get to state that. I didn't care if I was right or wrong. I feel we should be forward looking. We're finishing the past so we can move forward, because what I feel is we have the opportunity of a future that our ancestors couldn't dream of.
Yeah.
And we're serving them by going forward.
Absolutely. And I suspect, and I'm going to ask you this,
Yeah.
Gary, that this is why you do this work.
Yes.
It is about creating the future that is possible.
Yeah, the future we want to live in.
Mhm.
And that's, a lot of people say you're just honoring blah 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 blah. I was repping a Jewish man who died in the Holocaust for a fellow facilitator. We would meet once a month in LA,
Mm.
and she just came back from Auschwitz to see the ancestral site. Oh, oh my God, why am I alive? Blah 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 blah. Typical suffering, which is okay. I understand it. And I'm laying there as the jet. I said, "Will you go eat a bagel and enjoy yourself? I paid the price. You go enjoy life." It was comical, but it was just to break that like grief
Wow.
energy, like shatter it, like go ahead, you're alive.
Yeah,
Go
you're alive. Recognize
on.
that and
Yeah,
claim it.
yeah. And he was happy being dead, but he was more happy when she turned away.
Hmm.
Don't say that I'm going to suffer in grief my whole life. I'm going to be in shiva my whole life because you suffered.
Mm.
No, it's like, okay, do it for a minute, but then go out in the world
Yeah.
and just, be a happy Jew. I mean,
And live in honor of me.
exactly. That they didn't
Mhm.
get to do that, but you get to do it for them. So
Mhm.
we're honoring them by having the best life, because you know what? That's what they wanted.
And there's that's part of what I mean about,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the word is healing or not, healing backwards,
Yes, absolutely. Mhm.
because we really are reprogramming that pattern, because then
Exactly.
it stops in that moment, and it doesn't continue on with your children and your children's children. So
Exactly.
someone has to be willing.
And so our audience knows, I sincerely believe that, say, the rep for your dead grandmother or great grandmother you never even met this lifetime,
Mhm.
when we're healing those, and I pride myself in this, I'm healing the reps as well as the client, because I know it touches me. I know we have an opportunity to heal the heaven realm in real time
Mm.
for the future of the earth realm. And
Yeah.
there's no bigger privileged place to be than to heal heaven and earth at the same time.
Mm.
Unconditional love. It's
Mhm.
not our place to judge. There's
Yeah.
plenty of churches for that, if that's what people. I'm like non-denominational, and I do have a minister credential, but I am just absolute unconditional love. And to find,
You're a non-denominational love bug.
yeah, exactly. And they're happy that people can move forward. And also, the audience should know that with constellations, I'm different than other people. I really create healthy boundaries, that we honor the past, we bow to it. And I can send you the bow card. We bow
Mhm.
to it to let it be in the past and take the life force energy out of that, and then turn
Mhm.
away from it and move it forward to make our dream come true. Because
Exactly.
ultimately, when we make our dream come true, we make everyone's dream come true who came before.
Mhm.
They didn't have the chance because of global circumstances, or a sudden
Mhm.
death, or a farming accident, you name, or a
Yeah.
murder. I've seen it all over 26 years.
Yeah,
And
and we're not denying that any of those things happened.
yeah,
They did.
but not
And
crippling us to move,
yes. Yeah.
but
Because
empowering us to move.
Mhm. Mhm.
And as long as we love them, and just, one thing, a bigger lesson I get, and I'm learning all the time. This isn't like I learned once. It's like every
Mhm.
experience is
Mhm.
just so deeply moving to me. It's everything is a gift. That may be hard for people to swallow. Maybe in hindsight, me being a battered child was a gift to look inside myself, to
Mhm.
examine the family system, to look back at my childhood and know that something wasn't right. Many people don't have that. I think people battle with the subjective consciousness and objective. A lot of people can't be objective when they look at themselves. It's just
Mhm.
subjective. When I
Mhm.
look at most people who are victims, even in my own family, I have people that are married to victimhood in my own family, and I have compassion for them, but they won't see it any other way
Right.
because some people feel righteous when they're a victim, and what
Mhm.
they don't realize that's perpetrator energy against themselves. So they're
Exactly.
stuck in this unchanging veil of poor me, poor me, poor me till I die. Is
Mhm.
that really how you want to spend your life? Is that the best way? Maybe that's their lesson to learn. It's not my place, but I can show them there's alternatives to that. And the other thing your audience should know, say you have a poor me victim, say it's a woman who was sexually abused in your ancestors, like your great grandmother. Every woman will feel she has to suffer the same victimization to be part of a female lineage.
Mm.
All females are victimized in our family.
Mhm.
And so that's important that I put out in Venus Envy. Sometimes there can be a loyal to suffering that, like I said before, if I'm a happy Jew, I'm disloyal to all the Jews, my ancestors who might have died in Auschwitz who were
Mhm.
persecuted.
Mhm.
No, they wanted to be happy. They didn't expect this to come along. They
Yeah.
didn't expect a pogrom. They didn't expect Hitler. They didn't expect anti-Semitism to be so virulent in the
Mhm.
18th and 20th, probably 18th to 20th centuries. Now we have, more awareness of it and look out for it, but they didn't back then. It was business as usual.
Sure. Sure. And what you're creating is a whole new path.
Yes, absolutely. And to happiness,
Yeah.
to see the gift we do have. Life is so short that if we don't enjoy the gift we have now, do you want to get on the other side? Fine, but let's be happy now and use it to create a better world,
Yes.
help
Yeah.
other people be happier.
So is there anything that you would like to share from Venus Envy that could, let's say, could help our audience
Yes,
look particularly
absolutely.
around the way in which sexism has been so
Yeah,
controlling?
yeah. It's not real. It's been created by men to repress. So I did the opening of the book as a teaching about the myths. Women are weak, women
Mhm.
aren't smart. These are all cultural beliefs. And I mean, if we
Mhm.
have them in Western culture, no, not to diss the Taliban or any of the things that are really oppressive to women, is that they're myths that were created to oppress the female, and they're not true.
Mhm.
Now, equally for a male can't be sensitive, a male can't be tender. You got to be a good soldier. Don't
Mhm.
cry when you're injured. If your arm's falling off, just say, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll put a band-aid on my torn arm." You know what I mean? It's like the tough aspect of males is equally
Mhm.
misogynistic, and those little boys learn
Suffer.
off young. And I wonder how, when I'm in a grocery store and I see a 4-year-old boy tugging at his mother's apron, I said, how is he going to grow up to hate that woman? What does society tell him when he's a needy little boy that that's not okay? You got to be a strong soldier and women are
Mm.
less. But people buy into the cultural belief. And
Mhm.
that's also why I wrote the book. There's false cultural beliefs we believe to be true, which are actually the myths that we've been kind of mind controlled and spoon fed as truth when it's not really true. So that's why I went into 27,000 years of history to show how other civilizations did it, which
Mhm.
was valid for them. And they were very sophisticated, matrilineal inheritance and this,
Mhm.
and the rules and the goddess stuff was just absolutely beautiful. So many people don't know that. Why? Because the Bible told me so. This book is the truth. God wrote the book. No,
Mhm.
I say man's interpretation of what he wanted God to say is what the Bible is.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it was used for his own gain. A lot of people don't realize the King James Version of the Bible was edited for the King of England by Sir Francis Bacon way back when to give him divine powers, just like the Pope is the messenger of God in the
Mm.
Vatican. They wanted the King of England to be the divine God on earth
Mhm.
ruling the UK and their territories globally, the Commonwealth, so to speak. So
Mhm.
it's artificial stuff that was created to empower people. That's why it's really important. The American experiment is the people have the power. You don't have to answer to a king. You are the king of your own life, king or queen of your own life. And that's why America was so revolutionary at the time. But I see we're forgetting that more and
Yeah,
more.
the patterns have stepped in, the patterns of those
Exactly.
myths. Hmm.
Right, right. And the government is the new king, that we have to be subservient to, or the tax system, whatever. But we're all empowered beings. We just have to use it or we're going to lose it.
Okay, so maybe I was just searching for
I
okay,
know,
I
right.
want to end on a positive note.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And all this was meant to be positive. Don't think I'm just talking about the dirty stuff in life.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to use it or lose it. And just for your audience, see everything as a gift to move forward. And I'll send you the bio card that you can share with your listeners. It's
Yeah, I
instructions.
have that somewhere because
I'll forward you the digital
okay.
version. And you just bow the past. Thank you for what I did receive. Whatever I didn't want, I leave with you, and it's not mine to carry for you. It's your baggage. And now I turn away to my future. But you got to thank them for what you did get, because we could cry over spilled milk to the day we die. That's not
Hmm.
going to serve us. Can
Right.
we say, okay, I was a battered child, blah, blah, blah. I'd leave that responsibility of being a mother who hurt her children or parent with you. I survived it. Thank you. I have enough to survive it. Now I turn away and make my dreams come true
Yeah.
with love in my heart that they had no choice and I have a
Hmm.
choice. So the biggest thing is we have a choice.
We have a choice, and what is it that we're going to step into and
Right.
create?
In which is the quantum right
Yeah,
there. We have
absolutely.
the whole universe is our canvas. So what do you
Hmm.
want to put on the canvas? Just black paint because they suffered behind,
Yeah.
or boom, the sun.
The sun, yes, go for the sun.
Exactly.
And we're recording this today, which is the eclipse day.
I know, I know.
So anyway,
Yeah,
quite something. Gary
excellent.
Stewart, I love you. And
Ditto, ditto. Thank you.
thank you for being here with us today,
Yeah.
for sharing and blowing our minds.
Oh yes. There is hope. There is hope. Don't worry. we just we're chipping the mud away to
Ah,
the
well, because there's such beauty.
yeah, there is. There is. Thank you so much, Laura. I really appreciate it. I'll share this power and why, and I'll send you the digital bow card.
Great. And I will attach that to the show notes. Oh, and if they want to know more about you and working with you, where can they
Yeah.
reach you?
Well, my website's GaryStewartHealing.com. I'm doing live events in LA and private events in Arizona. They don't quite get in Arizona yet, but LA does. And they can reach out at GaryAtCheefield.com to send me an email about something. But I have a ton of information on my website. If they
Great.
go into FAQ about all the dimensions of constellations,
Mhm.
beautifully designed. And
And I will put that into the show notes as well.
yeah, I'll put it with the bow card so you have both.
Yeah, and I have that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so much,
Gary.
Lori. Just blessings on our journey, and let's cross paths again
We will. We
at an
will.
event.
And
Okay.
thank you to our audience for being with us
Yeah.
today here
Yes.
at Wisdom Talk Radio. Join us here regularly, as I always say, for more wisdom, discovery, and illumination. And if you've just like suddenly found this is the first time you're listening, you can subscribe. You can find us on your favorite places to listen to podcasts, wherever that might be. And if you've enjoyed listening today, please do leave us a review, because when you do that, that helps other people find us, and it spreads that wisdom. It transforms the world. And for more for you about how to deepen your connection with source, your own inner guidance, check out and take the quantum connection quiz over at the Baca Institute today, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us here at Wisdom Talk Radio. We wish you well in your conscious explorations. For more information and to join in the conversation, our website is wisdomtalkradio.com or at Wisdom Talk Radio on Facebook.